Welcome, everyone. I'm Jenny of Polyp Foundation, and we have a very special treat today for FAP Awareness Week. We have a live panel of some pretty incredible advocates. And so we're going to go around the room and to introduce everybody, and then we'll have some questions.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kevin Myers, and I have FAP, and I live in Michigan currently.
My name is Michael Caprio, and I have FAP as well. I was diagnosed at 18 after I graduated high school, and I'm based out of New Jersey, Hapakon, New Jersey.
I'm Lamphere. I was diagnosed with FAP in 2017, and I live in Wisconsin.
I'm Rebecca Baker. I live in northern BC, and I was diagnosed with FAP at 10 years old. This is Ryan Baker. He was diagnosed in 2022, and he lives in northern BC.
I'm so excited that all of you have joined in this panel, and we're excited to learn more about things from each of you. So for our first question that we have is to give a brief explanation of your experience with FAP. And in honor of FAP Awareness Week, which this panel is for, let's start with Kevin with that question.
I'm one of five sons, second oldest from my father, Carlton Myers, who had FAP, and his FAP started in our family from his mother, who was 28 in 1928 when she died from, it was probably colon cancer, although you don't really know. She had two sons. My uncle was a few years older than my father. He died in 1965 from colon cancer related to FAP. And my father was diagnosed shortly after that, and he received a total proctocolectomy, which saved his life. And he went on to live to 96. In the meantime, when he was in for his surgery, his doctor, who was very knowledgeable at Henry Ford Hospital in Detroit with FAP, very unusual in the late 1960s, he told my father to get your sons in and have them checked while they're in their teens. So I was diagnosed at 13. I had a proctocolectomy when I was 14, just a week after my 14th birthday. And as did the rest of my other four brothers. And so from there, I did my best to keep it a secret and hide it, and wouldn't talk about it except in my family where we all had it. And so fast forward to some years later, I was being seen at the University of Michigan, and Erica Kepi out there, who was doing genetic research, had me get into the to be tested. And in the process of that, I was informed about a family day, and which I attended in probably October of 2014, I'm guessing. And that was the first time I'd really had any introduction with others with FAP and something called Lynch syndrome. And it really just opened my eyes and really was such a huge freedom to the awareness and of just how many of us have FAP. And it really struck a chord on me so much that I was eventually inspired to uh, begin a colorectal um, condition support peer discussion group through the Cancer Support Community of Greater Ann Arbor. And that began in March of 2015. But just prior to that, I had met the founders of the Hereditary Colon Cancer Foundation, Travis Bray, and he really influenced me quite a bit. And with many,
Sorry,
many
my cat.
inspirations,
I was just gonna say,
um, I continue to experience many avenues being open to me, such as going into genetics classes through the University of Michigan, spreading awareness about FAP to a lot of the graduating students, and then my father. That's I'm going to bring my father into the mix here because he was really quite instrumental in bringing about something called FAP Day. It started out as a day on his 90th birthday in 2016. And we honored him on that day with FAP Week for the state of Michigan, a proclamation. And we continued that the next year. However, the next year became FAP Week. And ever since then, FAP Week in any state that has a proclamation is during the week that includes June 16th of every year. And my father continued to live with FAP, and he may have been the oldest living person at the age of 96 with FAP. He had an ileostomy like I and most of my brothers. I briefly had a time where I had an internal pouch created, kind of like a Coke pouch, but unfortunately it created a lot of problems. I tried it again, and it still continued the problems. So I went back to an ileostomy in 2007, and all of the other issues cleared up. And along about 2014, I began running. Um, my daughter, who doesn't have FAP, encouraged me to run a 5K with her, and then after that, I ran 3 full marathons, and I continue to run. I will turn 69 in July this year, and I'm hoping I can still be running in my 80s. I know the 70s for sure. You know, I'm not going to stop when I turn 70 next year.
Mhm.
But my father and I had a very close relationship, and he was very proud of a week of FAP in his honor, and now it's been duplicated in other states, and I'm sure you're going to hear some about that as we go on in this.
Yes.
Um, so that's pretty much my story. There's a lot of details which I will not you know take over this whole time to tell you about, but
Thank you
that's
for
the basics.
thank you for sharing, Kevin. Rebecca and Ryan, will you guys share your FAP experience with us?
Yeah, so I first learned about FAP because of my dad back in 98 when he was diagnosed with colorectal cancer. My dad was adopted, so we had nothing to go off of until they opened up his adoption records when we found out his mother's side carries the gene, and it tore through everyone, and there's no living person besides my dad and us onwards. So all my siblings have FAP. Ryan here has FAP as well. I was diagnosed at 10, and at 14, I underwent a one-step J-pouch procedure. Since then, it's been a pretty much up and down lifelong journey. It My sister, she has lost most of her small intestine now as well due to FAP with polyps growing through. My father, he's in his 70s and actually just went through a life-saving procedure because they found desmoids growing in his pancreas, gallbladder, spleen, and even parts of his liver. So
Wow.
that's all been pretty much removed on him. And then Ryan has, what's your experience? Do you want to share? You want Mama to read it? So Ryan's pre-answered these questions because he's a little nervous. So Ryan says that his experience with FAP is having blood work, scopes, and tummy issues. He's watched his mom and his grandfather go through scopes and medical stuff and surgeries due to FAP. So while he's used to it, and it's been a long part of my life for a long time, it's still new and a little bit scary for me.
Understandably so, Ryan. Thank you so much, Rebecca and Ryan, for sharing. So, Anne, would you share your experience with FAP?
Well, I got my diagnosis late in life, even though back in 95 I had signs and symptoms of having FAP. And then my dad, shortly after I had, because I started having stomach issues and bowel issues, and I went in and they did a colonoscopy in the EGD when I was 20, in 1995, and told me I had a few colon polyps, but my stomach was coated with polyps, and told me, oh, there's nothing to worry about. Come back when you're 55. Yeah. And then I tried so hard to stress to the doctor, on my dad's side of the family, there's a lot of colon cancer. And he goes, nope, it's just these happen. There's nothing to worry about. Well, then very next year, my dad came down with colon cancer a few months after my scopes, and he died the next year. Then I brought it up to my doctor again, and he's like, nope, it has nothing to do with it. So it went on and went on, and I finally just gave up because, I couldn't get them to listen. And then at I actually ended up moving out here, and I started having stomach issues again because I was living in Washington State at that time. And then when we moved out to Wisconsin, I started having stomach issues again. And again, I was told, oh, there's nothing, we're not seeing anything. A few polyps in your stomach, nothing major, come back when you're 55. And went on 3 years back. Then after that, that was in 2014, 2017, I went in because I was having 6 months of constant diarrhea. I mean, nothing they did. And then at that time, my doctor says, we need to do a colonoscopy because you might have a bacteria that we need to get a sample of. He goes, oh, but you're going to be fine. And I said, well, my family
No,
history. He
man,
goes,
this is
but you're
not
not showing
good. Come
symptoms
on.
of anything being wrong. Well, they went in and did all these tests, did the colonoscopy, the EGD, and came back and called me on Valentine's Day and said it wasn't fine. He goes, you are like early pre-cancer in the colon.
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes, we got to send you out to Rochester, Mayo. So that's where they sent me. And when I got up there, the doctors there were like, this is clearly the case. They should have known back in 1995 that you had this based on your symptoms. And he goes, the fact that your dad died. And then he told me, oh, well, you got you have FAP. And I was like, how can you say that? And he goes, because looking at your pictures that they took and your family history.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him, I said, wouldn't I know this? And he goes, you would think. But he goes, they missed it. And he goes, the reason they missed it is because they have no training on it.
Yeah. And
And
I
then
think
yeah, and that began my journey. And I just, at that point, I felt defeated
sure.
because watching my whole family on my dad's side slowly die. I mean, he died in 96. And while he was going through his colon cancer stuff, his sister was diagnosed with colon cancer. And she battled it through chemo and all that for several years. And then she ended up finally saying, I'm just done.
Yeah.
So when I got my diagnosis, I thought, well, there's the nail in the coffin. It's coming.
Right.
And then that was when I finally, I was so sick of all the stuff. And I said, there's got to be something better we can do. Because I mean, I call from the time I had my surgery to get my J pouch to the time they did my reversal, my 90 days in hell.
Mhm.
That's all I can call them. It was just the most horrible time. And I actually asked to go to hospice because I was
Uh-huh.
just so sick and just couldn't do it. And I didn't think, but I went in to get all my life-saving stuff off and walked out of there like a week later on my own 2 feet.
Wow. I'm so glad too.
But, I was still angry. And then I ran across your website, which led me to Kevin's dad's story.
Mhm.
And that's where
Mm.
everything changed. And I finally decided to take my anger and start advocating.
I love it. I love
I mean, I
and
share it with anybody who will listen.
right. Well, and, like, and speaking of the training, I think, like, literally, like, it's a paragraph in most medical texts that they get.
Yeah,
Um,
that's what he said. He
yeah,
goes, you get this little paragraph, and he goes, and if it doesn't catch their attention, they just blow it off. So,
Interesting. Mm.
thank you for sharing. And
So I was diagnosed with FAP when I was a senior in high school. So I had to get the blood test to confirm that I had the gene, and then I winded up getting a colonoscopy to confirm the blood test. So for me and my family, my grandma, it comes on my mom's side. So my mom has it, my aunt has it, my grandma had it, my grandma's mom had it, and her sister had it. So my family's history is kind of a bit similar to Kevin's, where it goes back a really long time, and it initially started with my grandma's mom passing away suddenly back when she was a child, probably from what we would imagine would be FAP. Her colon perforated and they didn't know what had happened. So then my grandma and her sister were already grieving the loss of their mother, and then on top of that they got told that what killed their mother was something that they may have inherited. And then they both had to go around the country in the 60s and 70s when things were really, um, you know, eh, there wasn't really much you could do. There was like one or two options. So for the longest time, like a handful of years, my grandma and her sister, they used to do experimental procedures while they traveled the country looking for, surgeons who kind of understood what they had. And then they finally came along. There's a little bit of luck in everything. A great group of surgeons who were renowned that I wrote about in my book at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York City. So that's when they found the group of surgeons at Mount Sinai Hospital. I believe is where I was left off before I got cut
yes.
off, and that's where we found Dr. DeLernt, who was a really renowned surgeon who brought over the Koch pouch to New York City. So it's funny that Kevin mentioned that. And my grandma and my aunt, they were pretty, they didn't want to live with an ileostomy. That was kind of what bothered them when they were going through it. And they were looking for other options. And it's just before they were about to, give up and have an ileostomy. That's when my Aunt Ronnie's husband, my Uncle Jack, he found, or he got a tip basically on these doctors. And then that's when they took a chance. And it was, extremely new at the time. I believe it was like 1971 when they got operated on.
wow.
Yeah, with the Koch pouch. So like back then they made medical history, my aunt and my grandma. And I believe they were like 12 and 13 in the country to get it done. It's for
Man.
the Koch pouch. Yeah, so they made medical history, and then my Aunt Ronnie only had one child, and she never inherited it, so it kind of ended on that side. Then my grandma had four children, my aunts and my mom, and it's actually kind of interesting hearing your guys' experiences, because for my family it seems to be pretty straight on the 50-50 aspect,
Mhm.
and that's obviously not how it is for everyone. And I've never really encountered other people who've had it, be totally, I guess, recessive would be the word, where it's hit in every single person. But on my mom's side, it's been pretty consistent with the 50-50 for my family, at least.
Mhm.
And so my mom and my Aunt Maria winded up having it. My Aunt Maria never had children. And then my mom had me and my brother, and I have it. My brother doesn't have it. So now it's kind of, up to me where it goes forward. So the same group of surgeons have been working on my family. So my mom was operated on by Dr. Delern. My grandma was operated on by Dr. Delern, but then Dr. Delern died in the 90s. So then Dr. Gorfine took over as the head of the practice. And he was the person who performed my J pouch surgery and my aunt's J pouch surgery, which is funny because like when he operated on my aunt, it was one of his first ones he ever did. And then by the time he operated on me, like 20 something years later, he did thousands of them.
Wow.
So we all have very different experiences with it because, my mom had a straight pull through and then eventually reverted back to a J pouch. And that happened in like 2020. So that was fairly recent and something we were told couldn't be done at the time. So she's had a more complicated history with it. I've benefited a lot from trial and error in my family. My road, I mean, there's been hardships and, there's things I still have to learn, like certain things that, I eat sometimes, especially since I'm, into the gym and trying to push past the physical limits of my condition. I try to do that a lot. And sometimes I run into roadblocks where I'll eat something that'll, throw me into a fit for a bit. So it does happen, but not nearly on the level that they quite had to go through. And so my grandma was very much an advocate for FAP. She always did like experimental procedures for most of her life to further
Wow.
research. And, she was the one who kind of made things really easy for me after all the years of hard work and uncertainty that she faced. So when I was going through my operation after I had, 2 weeks after graduating high school is when I had my large intestine removed and I had a J pouch constructed, and I didn't do it in one part. I had it in two parts. It was supposed to be one part, but looking back on it, that may have been for the better because the practice stopped doing it at the time for whatever reason. But I definitely think I benefited from the fact that it was two part just in my long term health after the fact. And yeah, so my surgery was about 9.5 hours under the knife, and I was in the hospital for 2 weeks, and it took me like about a year to get back on my feet. And obviously, I wasn't like, Mr. Advocate right away. I went through my period of anger, frustration, grief, and all that too, where I was wondering why this had to happen to me and feeling like my life was kind of, you know, in a sense tainted or ruined or whatever word you want to use. But obviously, as time went on, I learned that that wasn't true at all, and it took some time, but mostly what kind of got the spark going for me was my grandma. Like and I wrote about this in my book, like during my low points, and during my recovery time after my surgeries, I would go to my grandma's after my parents had used all their sick days to take care of me. And I remember during that time, she would just kind of share with me some of her, I jokingly called them her war stories from when she would go through, her uncertainty and her procedures and everything. And it's just funny because when I was growing up, my grandma was always, like the fun grandma. I never viewed her as anything like having anything wrong with her. She was always the one who would take me to Macy's and let me spend $300-400 on clothes and don't tell your mother and, slipping you money and dancing on the dance floor and taking all these vacations. And so when I grew up and I went through this myself and then I learned from her that, you know, prior to me getting diagnosed and everything, I never even knew anything was wrong with my family. I mean, maybe there were some warning signs and I was a bit naive, but it wasn't anything like super obvious to like a child, so that a child would notice, right? Because I never did. And like I said, my grandma was always the life of the party. So then when I got older and she was telling me all these stories of things that she went through that were way worse than what I went through, it kind of recontextualized everything and made me reevaluate how I view my situation and my perspective. Because from my grandma's perspective, she went through all that uncertainty. She was going through experimental procedures. She, spent longer time in the hospital, longer recovery times, dealt with more things after the fact. I mean, you name it. And she never gave up. And the whole reason why my family is so big as it is now is because they never gave up. If she decided to give up in the 70s when she had more than enough reason to do that, or when two of her daughters got diagnosed with it, or, one of her grandchildren got diagnosed with it, there was just always constant adversity. but she always persevered through it. And I just think about my story. It's like, the butterfly effect is something that I think about a lot. And for me, it's like, I don't if she didn't give up and she was able to persevere through all that and get out on the other side, then it's almost like, what's my excuse? And so that kind of rechanged how I thought about things, and I started to do more advocacy work, kind of to follow in her footsteps, and that's what's gotten me to where I am today.
Well, thank you so much.
Mm.
So I was diagnosed at 8 with FAP. I had a little bit of trouble getting diagnosed, not nearly as difficult time as you, Anne, but I had I had stomach pains that were chronic, and my mom. We were able to trace back my family lineage of FAP back to 5 generations, so it was a known issue. But unfortunately, my pediatrician also didn't understand FAP like your doctor, Anne. And so she
Mhm.
dismissed it as I was just whiny. I was just a whiny kid. And so she refused to send me to a GI specialist for evaluation. So my parents had to change insurance companies and plans and got me to a GI doctor who immediately was like, oh no, we need to do all the testing. And of course, I came back positive. I had my colon out a year later at 9. I had surgical complications that resulted in more surgeries. So after my first year of surgeries, from colon removal and the complications that I had, I lived with an ileostomy for 6 years. I had a failed J pouch that actually was attempted twice, and it was in high school that it was attempted to be reversed into a straight pull through, which oddly enough, Mike, I don't get to encounter a lot of people who've had that also.
Yeah, it's rare,
Yeah,
I've learned.
it is. And so it worked though for me. I did have complications from adhesions, and so that
Mhm,
resulted in a year of uncertainty and another surgery. And it took my health about 5 years to stabilize. And
mhm,
then it wasn't until 2021 I had my gallbladder out, and uh, we know that our polyps can develop anywhere in the body, and so it wasn't necessarily expected, but they
mhm.
found one in my gallbladder.
Okay.
So that was lucky timing to have had it removed, and I've just been keep on going since. So that's mine in a nutshell.
Mm.
um, so our next question is, what kind of advocacy have you done for FAP? And I know, and Kevin, so you talked a little bit about that with your group and the FAP Awareness Week. Any other things that you'd like to add as far as on the advocacy front that you've been doing?
Well, I've had the opportunity to go to some conferences. Most recently, a couple years ago, went to the um, Cologuard Classic out in Arizona, and in regards to FAP, um, and I spoke to as many people as I could about the importance of early diagnosis. Um, and with the group I'm in, and in all of my contacts, whether it's in a panel discussion, um, or yeah, on Facebook, I advocate for early
Mhm,
detection because FAP, as bad as it um, can progress to, is very highly preventable of cancer if it's caught early enough, and that's really the key. And so, as far as advocacy, I suppose whenever I have an opportunity, I will speak on that, and I have. Sometimes it's been with genetics students. Sometimes it's been on a patient advocate doctor panel um, discussion. There's a group that has met out of the state of Michigan, and I've been on that a few times. So Yeah, I think that's the best I can do. And well, and then in the group, which is now virtual, became virtual after during the time of COVID, which was really kind of a blessing in disguise because that allowed um, others from all over the country to join us, and it's really quite interesting to see how different research is done in different areas, and we all benefit from that. So
Mhm.
um, just having the honor to have others on that to spread awareness and information has been helpful to quite a few people. And as far as the positives of advocacy, I have found that um, those of us who have really hung in there and who have sought out um, connections with others and are also the most outspoken in terms of their own care with doctors. And I I wish it weren't so, but there's a positive side of educating our medical profession more and more, which those of us who have been through this can do, and we have a lot of excellent information. So I'm always um, pro on that. So
Thank you, Kevin. Rebecca and Ryan, I know you guys have been doing some different things and are starting some new things.
Yes. Ryan, do you want to go first or do you want me to read for you?
I want you to go first.
You want me to go first? Okay. So, a lot of my advocacy has been focusing on education and awareness. I regularly speak with the medical professionals within the health network around me and the surrounding communities. I'll meet with them directly one on one. I actually have 4 different GIs in my city that want to meet with me next week to
Oh,
discuss the effects of FAP, not just in the gastrointestinal system, but with new studies that are showing that the APC deletions and mutations can affect cognition and actually cause autism like symptoms.
wow.
So we're going into
Nice.
be discussing those. I am incredibly and passionate about raising awareness of around proper surveillance and early recognition of complications due to multiple complications that I have had. My J pouch is currently failing due to diet stuff that wasn't told to me post-op when I got my J pouch. Um, I also use my social media platforms and to the community connections to share my experiences openly. Um, I this morning just started a youth support group for FAP on Facebook that will be going live in the next couple of days here for youth and teens under the age of 19 because there's no real support groups for them. I spent almost a year looking for stuff for Ryan, and all we found was Jenny and her social media in reality for and her books for kids. So that's what I have been doing pretty much. Rue, Ryan, right here. What do you do? What kind of advocacy do you do?
I tell my friends, teachers, and family and doctors about FAP so more people understand what it is.
Yeah. Ryan's been going around. He's in about 10 different communities, classroom areas, and almost all of his friends at this point know exactly what FAP is. He's actually brought Your Life's a Polyp book to all of these, and he reads it to all of his friends because it's the easiest way for him to be able to explain it. Ryan advocates with his doctors severely about the surveillance that he needs, and he explains why and how.
You are an incredible role model, not just advocate, but role model also, Ryan.
wow,
Yes.
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
What a great story there. And I mean,
Uh, can you guys imagine what else Ryan's gonna get up to? Like
Yeah, starting
that's
young.
what you're starting with. Like
Yeah.
you are going to be doing so much more. We already can tell, Ryan. Like it's
You're only 9 and you're doing so
yeah,
much already.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that's
You're coming right.
incredible.
Okay.
Like see, this is
Ryan, you are doing exactly the opposite of what I was doing, and I would have much rather been in your shoes. So I really applaud everything you're doing. You are you were really there's so much strength and courage in you. I really admire you.
absolutely. This is why I say that I cry all the time about Ryan.
Yeah, I get it now.
I
It's
know.
incredible.
Like Ryan, your mom will tell me what you're doing or things, and I'm like, oh my gosh. I
That
can't
is
tell you, right?
amazing.
Like it's
That's
I mean,
amazing.
such incredible strength and
yeah.
courage.
So
That's,
we all can't wait to hear all
yeah.
the not just
I
what you're, obviously what your mom is doing too, but we know like, oh my gosh, the ideas and the things that you're gonna continue to do. We're excited to see.
You're going to make big changes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It really is.
That's that's a very well entrenched
Yes.
launching pad there.
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
Yeah, real foundation. Mm.
Oh, it's making me cry.
I know. Girls. Mike, help us not cry and tell
I'll
us
try
what
my
you've been
best.
doing.
No guarantees. But yeah, what I've been doing lately is like for this year I've done a lot trying to do more book events. Obviously writing my book was a form of advocacy, and kind of similar to what Rebecca was saying, and I feel like all of us, when you get diagnosed with FAP, the first thing you do is you look online to see if there's anybody else out there who could be like some sort of a guide to you, and there's not much out there. You find like the same 5 people, and I've known like since I wrote my book, the whole purpose of it when I decided to open up about my story and be really vulnerable was, if it helps one person, it was worth it, because my family was fine with it, but they were just saying like, you're going to put yourself out there in a really vulnerable way. Like, what do you want to get out of it? And I just kept it really simple. If it helps one person, then it's worth writing and putting out there. And so for me, I try to do more book events and for Colon Cancer Awareness Month back in March. I had 2 book sign-ins in Barnes and Noble. So I was able to just hang out in the store and give my book out to people and just, chat with them and raise awareness and give them my business card and just explain to my book, or in some cases even sell my book and spread awareness that way and just have conversations with people face to face. So I've been doing a lot more like that. I've also done work with a lot of nonprofits over the years. One that I worked with pretty closely, and I have some connections there, and we're actually planning on doing something for FAP Awareness Week in June, is CGA IGC, and they focus more on like the genetic aspects of it. I'm even hoping one day to maybe speak at their annual conference, because speaking is something I've been trying to get into. As an author, I've just been trying to think of other ways to like promote my book and get my message out there. And I've learned in the last year that public speaking is probably something I'm going to have to get familiar with if I really want to take it to the next level, which I do. So that's plans for the future. Is I'm trying to get to a point where I can actually give a presentation at nonprofits and speak in a more bigger, direct way, can really get the message out there. And that that about covers it. I mean, I'm always doing, like I said, I'm always doing something with my book, and there's always like different messages I get. Like, a good. I feel like this is a feel good story. Is in Australia, I have a handful of people who have read my book, and it started with this one woman who had reached out to me on Instagram, and it was her daughter at first, and she said like, my mom really likes your book. It really means a lot to her. She has FAP as well, and here in Australia, it's really not heard of. Like, and I told her, I was like, your mom could reach out to me, like, just give her my information, and I'm more than happy to chat. So then she reached out to me, and we kind of formed like a pen pal relationship. And, she was just basically telling me that for the longest time, for her whole life, like down in Australia, no one knows what FAP is. It's very rare, and nobody's really talking about it. And when she shares her stories with friends and family, they don't truly understand it. So she
Mhm.
said she said she would like periodically search online to see if anything new came out. And then she said that's when she found my book, and she was like, she couldn't believe it. She was like, "Wow, an actual book on someone who has FAP!" Like, so she bought it, and then she was saying how she related to so many of the experiences and like the emotions I put in the book and like a lot of just what I said. And she said it felt really nice to just have someone who can relate to it. So then what I
Mhm.
offered her is I was like, since you're saying a lot of friends down there don't really understand it, I was like, I'll ship you like a box of books and you could just give them to whoever, like I'll ship you like
Mhm.
20 books and just give them to your friends and whoever. And I remember when I did that, she was so happy that she like asked me
Yeah.
an email what my address was, so I knew something was coming back to me. And so like, she sent me like a huge care package of like goodies for my
Aw.
mom from Australia. Like my mom likes chocolate and tea, so it was like all Australian tea and chocolates. And then like all the cup holders in my room are like, I have one.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is like Sydney. Like she has she gave me all the cities, and I just have all this merch everywhere from Australia. So like
Oh, that's so sweet.
stories like that are why I did it, is for
Mhm.
moments like that when people are like, I've been looking so long for somebody to be a voice online and I hadn't had anything. And then I found your story, and then that kind of changed things. So that's
Yeah.
what I'm trying to do.
I love it. And tell us again what your book is.
Yeah, so it's called The Bump in the Road, My Medical Journey Over Potholes, Detours, and the Bridge to Gratitude. Sorry, sometimes I forget the order of the subplot or the
That's
subline.
okay.
But
And we'll
Yeah.
yeah, we'll put the link in the show notes too for everybody.
Yeah.
yeah, of course. So it basically,
Absolutely.
it details my personal experiences with it, my family history, as well as, I do a lot of medical research onto my doctors and I try to give them their flowers that they rightfully deserve for, saving my family's life and
Yeah.
restoring our quality of life in a lot of ways and for all the
Amen.
patients that they took care of. Because I remember when Dr. DeLearnt died, my family was pretty devastated. Obviously, I was a
Mhm.
kid, so I don't remember it as much, but I linked like some New York Times articles of his obituary and like people sharing the nice stories that they have of him.
Oh.
And the surgeon who operated on me recently sadly passed away in the last year or so. But I remember when I only found out this past year, unfortunately. But when I did find out, I wrote a nice thing on his obituary, and then his obituary is online, so it's digital. But again, you could just read all the stories from people who are just sharing similar experiences to me. So in a way, even though it's sad, it's still nice, and it's nice that he
Yeah.
gets to live on in the pages of my book.
Yep.
Absolutely. That's it. And what a wonderful honor that you gave him.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
What?
Yeah. I'm
That's
sure
beautiful.
he is
He
very
read
honored
it
by
before
that.
he passed away. We had a friendship,
Yeah.
so we would
I
email
love
every
that.
once in a while, and I'd just touch base. And I remember when I was writing it, I was
Mhm.
worried about not getting certain medical things right, and I also wanted him to be okay with the light I was portraying him in. So,
Mhm.
like, I sent him the parts he was in, the medical stuff, and he would, like, give me corrections or feedback, and then when it
Oh, that's
published,
awesome.
I sent it to him and his wife, and him and his wife both loved it. So he did get to read it before he passed away, so that was
Oh,
that means a lot.
absolutely. That's so
Wow.
cool. I
Wow.
love that.
Very
I love
touching.
that.
Very,
Thank
very
Yes.
you.
moving. Yeah.
And what have you been doing?
Oh my gosh. I've been out. It's not even June yet, and I've been out. I've gotten some invitations to just go speak at Share My Story. And so I got to weed down how many I'm going to do in the month of June. I told them, I said I could do more, but they're not going to happen in June during Awareness
Mhm.
Week. Um, but yeah, I've been like my actually getting out and starting to share my story started by just sheer being in the right place at the right time, because I was at the store, she was complaining to a lady about her doctors wanting her to get a colonoscopy. She goes, "Oh, I'm only 45. Why would I need one? I thought it was 55." And then I told her, I said, I don't want to, after she was whining and crying about it enough, I was like, okay, I just can't do this. She's got to understand that it's not that way, and I
Mhm.
get it, thinking that because I was that way too. And then I shared my story, and then she came back a few weeks later and said, after you shared your story, I decided to go get my colonoscopy. And she goes, I had polyps.
Oh.
Oh, yep. And there's another one. And I do the tumblers and the coffee mugs. I'm hoping to be able to get out there and do
Oh,
one this year.
yes.
Yes. I didn't get to do one last year because I was sick, and then my thyroid decided it was not going to be nice any further. Yes. Yes. I got to make
Yes.
some new ones. Mine are starting to wear out. So I need to get in there and get some new ones made this year, because last year my thyroid decided it was going to turn to cancer.
Gosh.
And it
Which
started
is,
off as I woke up one night and just passed out, and that's a whole nother scary story. But I mean, I share my story, and then, like, when I'm at the doctor, I'm well known here, not just by people in town, but the doctors. And I ask my doctor every time I go see him, did you find me a friend, local friend, somebody I can pal around with? And he'll tell me, nope, Ann, you're still the only one that we know of.
mhm.
And, but when I'm in there, he'll sit there, hey, and we got some medical students here today. Can we bring them in? I always let them, because how are they supposed to learn?
Yeah.
And then I've just said, so I just feel that I get out, share my story, encourage people, when they're sitting there saying, oh, that this is going on. You've got, try to teach people, fight for
Mhm.
yourself, because those doctors don't know you like you do.
Right.
So, yep. And then I did my book this year because I found a little kid in Locke, Wisconsin, who doesn't have FAP, but he has a rare disease. It's the smooth brain syndrome.
Hmm.
And he celebrates Rare Disease Day every year. So that's why I wrote the book. So him and I can pal around together on Rare Disease Day.
I
Fantastic.
love that.
So,
Mhm.
so yeah, I got a little friend. I mean, he's not even supposed to be alive, and he's still alive, and I'm just like, this is incredible. I got to celebrate with this little kid, so
Yeah.
I made friends last year with a little kid with the rare disease that, he's just incredible. So I wrote the book in honor of kids who are going through this, just
Mhm.
rare
Mhm.
diseases in general. So, but I've got works in to try to get another one out there maybe. So
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait. I can't
Fantastic.
wait for the first one, but now I'm excited now for a second
it's
one.
in that initial review
Okay.
phase. It said, give them
Awesome.
72 hours.
That's awesome though.
So we'll see where it goes.
Yeah. And I know you do a lot of local events also
Yeah.
around, and you've gotten Wisconsin on board with FAP Awareness Week too.
Yes,
And
and I did
you're
get
just
another one of
always,
those coming. There is
you are
another one this
always,
year. And then the
yes.
library this year is going to feature your book during FAP Awareness Week.
Thank you.
And
Thank you
they
for
are,
all the help you
then
do.
I went to them and I said, okay, and every kid that'll answer, reads it and answers a question about it will get $5.
Gosh, you're very
So I
generous.
don't, because I
What a
wanted to
nice
get
one.
the kids to learning about it,
Hmm.
and
Mhm.
understanding. I mean, I can't even get my own kids to understand it. So I'm thinking, maybe if I get kids out there, they'll start talking. So yeah, the librarian is all in for it. She even told me, she goes, Ann, I ordered it. It's on its way. So that's going to be a fun week. And then we're going to, right, yeah, leave the light off. Stop touching it with your nose. Um, but yeah, it's just going to be a fun week. I mean, we're going to have a whole day on the 10th of June where we talk about my book, your book. We're going to have cake, ice cream, and just get with the kids.
That'll be so much fun.
Wow, so
Thank you
much
for
joy
helping
in
do
it.
that
Yes.
and all the things you're doing. All of the things all of you are doing.
Yes.
Um. Okay, so our next question, Kevin, what led you to do advocacy?
Well, I think the biggest inspiration was my father, really, because
Mhm.
I think that's kind of where that was sort of the launching pad, when he turned
It's
90.
on.
Mhm.
uh, that was 2016. Um, but I had really started in 2014, but um, it, and initially it was just the I think the joy and the gratitude. It was gratitude really for being kind of getting a nudge to let other people know, and then the joy of joining with others and seeing how much of a difference it made. But I think the real boost was when my father turned 90 and had the inspiration, an idea, just jumped in, and as many times it does, that my father was turning 90 and this would be a wonderful way to honor him.
Mhm.
And I had a contact in the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, and I visited with her in person, and she helped me to get this started and going. So on his 90th birthday, June 16th of 2016, at FAP Day. And so finally we could begin to get the word out at a state level. And I posted that wherever I could, in doctors' offices, and like that. And then with your inspiration, Jenny, in getting this also into other states and so forth, that was really exciting too. So
Thank you for sharing the template with me too, so we could
Yeah.
could help support that.
yes,
Well,
yes,
made it real easy.
Yes, it did.
and then like your story, Anne, just how it meant such a great deal to me
Yeah.
to hear you receive the inspiration from my father's story,
Yeah.
and that is just the kind of thing that keeps this whole thing moving forward,
Yeah.
um, to give the opportunity for many who might not otherwise know that they really can have a quality life and can live a long time, as my father had proved, in spite of many obstacles. He
Yeah.
really hung in there. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Thank
Yes.
you. Rebecca and Ryan.
You want to go first or me? Me? Okay. So what really pushed me was the lack of awareness and support that I found when I moved to the city I'm in now. I used to live in Vancouver, which is a huge city. I moved 12 hours north. No one, I had all the doctors over the past decade 30 of them tell me, you know way more about this than I do. Can you teach me? And that was incredibly concerning to me as a mom who knew her child was going to be diagnosed as well, with how prevalent it is in my family. So I very quickly realized that many families are left trying to educate themselves in other areas of Canada and the world in general. So for me, advocacy became a way to bridge that gap, not just for the patients, but the healthcare providers too.
Yes.
Ruth, do you want to read it or me? Okay. So Ryan had answered, because people should know about it, and it makes me feel less different when people understand it better.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yes. We you said it perfectly, Ryan.
You did.
Yeah. It makes such a huge difference.
You hear that? It does? Oh. Ryan's also autistic, so he does go nonverbal at points, but he's just signing right now saying thank
Yeah.
you.
Oh,
Yep.
you're very welcome. Thank you, Ryan.
thank you, Ryan.
Yeah.
You're doing a
Uh,
good job out there.
yes, you are.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
I know uh, some of the things that you guys do with your doctors, and the fact that both of you are so willing and open with them
Yeah.
too. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think that's something I think you really expounded, Mike, on is the um, being willing to be vulnerable, willing to be authentic in the communication about it, as opposed to um, for way too long this whole topic has been no, don't talk about that. You know, we're not going to talk over dinner about this, and yet it really needs to be talked about, and there's a false sense of shame attached to the whole idea, and yet this is quality of life we're talking about. We're talking about. Uh, I mean, everyone has a gift, and if we don't take care of the uh, of living and having the quality of life, then those gifts will never get known and expressed and experienced by others. And I think what you said, Ryan, was beautiful about
Yes.
when we share with others, we get to feel it too. We get to experience it too, and it's shared, and
Yes.
it touches everyone. So,
Absolutely. And I know, Mike, you expanded some earlier about kind of what led you to do it, advocacy in your book. Did you want
Mhm.
to add any other
Yeah.
information to that?
Yeah, because obviously, I mean, I had mentioned that my grandma rubbed off a
Hmm.
lot of me in that regard. But another aspect of it, like before, just kind of my grandma being an inspiration to me in that regard was me kind of living through the bad parts, right? Like for a long time, I was guarded and I didn't talk about it with friends or anyone. And
mhm,
there was a period after my surgeries where I went recluse from my family and I wasn't really telling them what was going on in my mind. And I was really in a dark place and I did all the things that I don't do now. Like all the things that I do now, I wasn't doing. And I lived through that period for a while and I started to see the negative consequences of it. So for me, I actually have a chapter in my book called The Rock Bottom, which is my rock bottom moment that snapped me out of all the self-loathing and the feeling like my life
mhm,
was over and all these things, all the bad thoughts. The moment for me was I had we were talking about guilt and how people hide things and harbor things since this happens in your family. So for my family, when I was going through it, I was mad at the world, but I wasn't mad at my family. So I know that could be confusing because when it's genetic and I'm not talking to anyone, I recognize this now, but I didn't recognize it at the time as I felt like I was a burden to my family. So I had convinced myself that they would be better off without me. That's how I truly felt. So that's why I was being recluse from everyone, and that's why I was withdrawn from everyone. And then it kind of reached a point where me withdrawing was affecting my family, my parents who were battling their own guilt. And then seeing me just completely withdraw and give up was making them feel like maybe they made the wrong choice, or maybe
Mm.
this is their fault, or all the things that we shouldn't ever say about ourselves in these instances because it's not something we chose or control. It's just kind
Yeah.
of something that happens to us. So I remember, after doing that for a while, my mom kind of said, she's like, tell me what's on your mind. Like, I know something's wrong, just shoot straight. And I remember, I was like, do you really want to know what's on my mind? Like, are you sure about that? And she was like, yeah, tell me. So at the time I said this and I write about it in my book and it's something that's a painful memory. And I wouldn't say I regret it because it was necessary for me to snap out of it, but I had told her if I knew this would happen to me, I wish I was never born. And then immediately I could see the knife that went into my mom by saying that. And then the way I kind of detailed the moment in the book is my mom, she went outside onto the deck, she started crying. Then my dad came home and we kind of had this moment as a family where, my dad kind of shot straight with me and he was like, he's like, I get you're going through it and no one's trying to minimize what you're going through. But at the same time, he's like, your mother and I haven't been able to get a good night's sleep since you've been diagnosed for a year. And, we've been harboring all these feelings and guilt. And he basically told me, he's like, if you keep going down this path, he's like, I don't know where we're going to be as a family. And in that moment, just him telling me that in like the kind of disappointed dad tone, when you don't, no one ever wants to hear that from their dad. And then hearing my mom in the background crying kind of snapped me out of like the depressive thoughts that I had going for the first time since my
Mhm.
operation. And basically what I had come to the conclusion of is, things might be tough right now. I don't know if they're going to get better. I don't know what my life is going to look like, a year from now or 5 years from now or whatever. But all I know is if I keep doing this, I could destroy my family. It could lead to a divorce. It could, I don't know, it could blow everything up. I mean, or it could be much worse than that. And so I just kind of really had this stark moment where I really saw the consequences of my choices compounding, and it scared me. And so I kind of made the choice to, hey, even if it's not good right now, we're going to try and fake it till we make it, and put a mask on. But then, as I also wrote about, as life goes on and I started to heal, things did get better and I did gain things back, and it changed my perspective on things. Like, when I started to get everything back that I had lost, it really changed my mind and how I view things, and gave me a newfound perspective and appreciation for the little things, like truly the little things, like being able to drive to Dunkin' and have coffee, or like have a burger or whatever, like all the things that I couldn't do for the longest time, or couldn't eat, or activities I couldn't do, getting them back like really changed my perspective on everything. And then I had a part two, a choice where I could have chose to be quiet about it, and live with skeletons in my closet, so to speak. But I didn't want to live that way. And I saw that my grandma didn't live that way, and I saw how she lived. So that's where her inspiration came in. And then, I eventually got to the point where I was being more open about it, because on my mom's side, or for my mom at least, it was a little more taboo. So my mom and my grandma were very different. My grandma was an advocate. My mom was like, I don't want anyone to know type. And she was also the type who was never going to get operated on again or anything like that. Like, she had her mind set on it. But then, because I, went the advocacy route and I started opening up and talking more, it made me feel good, kind of like Ryan said, where, it kind of alleviates a burden off your shoulder, and it also connects you with other people, and it does make you feel good. There is a lot of joy in advocacy. I would say that it's given my life a lot of meaning and purpose. But even above meaning and purpose, I've kind of seen, like, I write about the butterfly effect a lot. And so, how I was talking about the negative actions and where they could have went, on the positive side, I've kind of impacted my mom in a way I never really thought, because of the route I went down with, advocacy, and writing the book and being open with our story. Obviously, I was putting my mom out there in a more vulnerable way too, and I had to get her approval on that, and she was fine with that. And then, as time went on, she changed her mind on how she views it. She was once the person who swore she would never get scoped again. When her time came, her time came. That was her philosophy. And that was, for as long as I was alive, that was her philosophy. But I remember when my grandma was sick, unrelated to FAP, it was not polyp related, but she was in her 80s. She lived a good life. But when she was sick and towards the end, we had, some real conversations. And I remember one of the conversations she had with my mom was, you have to get scoped after I pass. You have to do it for Michael. Like, you can't give up on him. And so then my mom, the person who never talked about any of this, like, especially when I wrote my book in 2021 and everyone kind of was reading it, she began opening up a lot more, and she was talking with people. And then in 2020, after like a year after my grandma had passed, she went to go get scoped, and she had a straight pull through. So this is actually good to talk about it with you guys, because you'll get it. Not most people don't get this part, but because she had the straight pull through, they left part of her large intestine behind. So when they scoped her, they saw that, and they were like, we have to remove this, and we have to undo the straight pull through, and you have to get a J pouch. And that was something that was, 5 years ago, was not possible, like a reversal from a straight pull through to a J pouch.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
the fact that, so like, I knew all these things and I was really nervous. I was at college at the time. And in my head, I was like, it was like weird. It was like a role reversal. My mom for all this time was worried about me, and my, how I was going to
Mm.
handle things. And now I was the one sitting waiting for a phone call, that the surgery went well and she was okay. And then I also had the added worry of knowing that, she was the person who always said she would never do X, Y, and Z to take care of herself. And I knew what she was about to go through. I knew it was going to be 2 surgeries, a year of recovery, a lot of ups and downs. And I was worried that she wouldn't be able to handle it. But then when it happened, when push came to shove and she was in the middle of it, she took it on like a champion. And I remember, we had COVID distractions at the time where she had to get whisked out of the hospital, and we had to play stay at home nurse for a while. And I remember when I was playing stay at home nurse one night with her, just kind of helping take care of her bandages, we just kind of laughed. And we have to laugh at sometimes our
Yeah.
circumstances. So like, we just kind of laughed at the absurdity of it, and she just kind of looked at me, and after she laughed, she was like, she said, "I don't think I'd be doing any of this if it wasn't for the way you handled your situation and did what you did." And then I just, I looked up at her and I was like, "Well, I'm glad we don't have to find out." So the little decisions you make in everyday life, and this is kind of what I'm all about, is they could either compound negatively for the worse, or they could change in ways you really couldn't ever imagine. And so for me, being in a spot where my mom's here in 2026 because of the choices I made. I mean, in an alternate universe, if I don't accept things and I don't go down the route I'm on, my mom doesn't get checked and then she might not be here. Or my family could have, been broken apart from the guilt and everything that comes with passing along a genetic condition. So I just really see how how the decisions to be open and to advocate and speak about my story have been so far positive. There's been not many negatives as far as I'm concerned.
They're right. Oh, that's fun. That's incredible. That's a lot. Truly butterfly effect.
Yes, exactly. I'm
Oh my
sorry, that was a little
gosh.
lengthy, but there's only one way I could really get that out, because that's kind of why I do
Yeah,
what I do, is because it really made me realize that, you know, doing the little things over time really does compound into ways you can't even quite imagine in the moment.
absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anne?
Oh, what led me down this road? Well,
Yeah.
the anger, the anger. And I just, I was so angry because it's like, how could this have been missed through so many of my family members? I mean, I watched my grandma's brothers all pass away from colon cancer, my dad, his sister, and then, I get this diagnosis and I just didn't understand how it could be missed. So and then, that's when I was like, okay, well, I felt like I was doomed at this point because it's already gone down a bad road. And then when I read Kevin's dad's story, that's when I said, you know what? It doesn't have to be this way. So that made me decide, you know what? I could either do one of two things, just sit here and wallow in my self-pity, or I can get out there and make my journey matter.
Mhm.
So if I could just even like save one life, everything I've been
Yeah.
through has been worth it. And I didn't want to see anybody else struggle the way I did to get a diagnosis or be brushed off that, yeah, well, it has nothing to do with your dad. When I would complain about this or that, well, it has nothing to do with your dad having colon cancer. It absolutely had everything to do with it.
Mm-hmm. It
So,
did.
and I just was bound and determined that nobody else, I've got doctors that I'll see and they'll say, oh, you're that lady with that, that weird disease. And they'll tell me, what is it called again? And I'll tell them. And I said, well, we just call it FAP because nobody can say it,
Mhm. Yep.
and I'm known in town as the lady with the weird disease. And I'll take it because that means
Yeah,
they're remembering.
that's
And
right. That's right.
they're remembering. They may not be able to remember the name, but they are remembering my story and it's making an impact.
Absolutely.
And
And those
Ryan, I'm
aren't.
going to have to send you a gift because he's just incredible.
I know.
So
I
he
know.
can get out there and do some more advocacy.
Yes.
But yeah, I
Find
did. I
tips.
just don't want my story to, everything I've been through. Like after I got diagnosed, my family kept telling me, oh, it's not true. It's not true. You can't have it. And then I went to my only biological brother saying, because he was having the same issues that I was having. And I was like, you need to get checked. And he goes, well, don't you think we would have known we had it if, yeah, would think, but no. So, and he finally did get when his daughter got sick with her pancreas.
Mm-hmm.
The doctors were telling him, she's going to die. She's going to die. We can't figure this out. And I reached out to my sister-in-law and said, have they checked her for FAP? And she goes, what? And then she told me, she goes, the doctors have been asking if anybody in the family has it. And your brother's been saying no. And I told her, I said, he's a liar. She got checked. She had FAP. She had, I believe, part of her pancreas taken out.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, and now I've got my brother finally did get tested because his daughter got tested. Of course, she's got it. He's got to have it. And
Yeah.
this is, and I've got him on the advocacy board too. He's
That's awesome.
slowly coming around. And it's just
Yes.
one person at a time is all I got to do.
That's right. And like you said, the pancreas, the thyroid, those were all connected.
Yeah.
a lot of other things too, but yeah, like,
Yeah, the big
oh,
ones.
yeah.
So,
Oh,
but I just don't want to see nobody else struggle the way I did to get a
mhm,
diagnosis. So,
absolutely. Kevin, how has your life or how you cope with FAP changed because of it? Because of your advocacy?
It has definitely given me the deep appreciation and the real strength of knowledge that it must be shared because um, if if it's hidden, it will continue to um, for me, it would continue to just bring about all kinds of other issues because something that is not exposed and out there um, and is rattling around continues to create stress within that leads to all other kinds of medical issues. Um, and so if it's true for me, it's true for everyone else. And the the joy really of seeing others just develop hope and have a new leash on life has just been so transformative. Um, and it has led to so many connections, so many positive connections.
Hmm,
And I just know when you give knowledge and information and empowerment to other people, you can't but receive it yourself. And then every time um, someone else finds out that they don't have to die from this, that just really comes back again and again and again. And I am so, it's beyond words. The joy of seeing this touch so many people's lives, to see the waves go out. It's like dropping a pebble into the water, and the ripples go out and they just touch everyone. And when someone else finds out and they say, "Oh, I need to tell so and so, I need to get this word out," it
hmm,
just keeps reverberating, but it had to begin somewhere. And I'm so grateful now for having had this, to know this now. It's actually a gift, because I can see that that information is going out and transforming lives, literally. Um, and how can you get a greater gift than that? I mean, that uh, the opportunities for speaking have been enhanced because of this. I used to be a pretty shy person, and not anymore. I've had so many opportunities to do this, and to make connections that have led to other things dropping into place for me is just, I don't know who that other one named Kevin was. That's not the one that's sitting here right
yeah.
now before you.
yeah, absolutely.
Um, I don't know how to say it any better. Mike, you just really said it so well. Those breakthrough experiences of, delving into the ugly, difficult stuff. It had to be exposed. Otherwise, um, it could not be freed up to just increase quality of life overall. That hard stuff really has to come up in order to be healed. Because if it just sits inside, it just sits there and it just it's like a pus, that just, kills you from the inside out. But once it's out, and once others have the opportunity, because of our stories, to also speak about what might have otherwise been unspeakable, then it just liberates the heck out of us.
Agreed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kevin.
And Mike, I think you are gonna be an excellent speaker. You already are.
Yes.
You've told it
Thanks,
to
Josh.
us. Now, what's the difference if you tell it to 100 people or 500 or 1,000 people?
Yeah,
It's the same thing.
that is true.
And and
Got to
and
work
you'll
through
you'll
it.
find you'll find their support, and you will find the reverberations of the gratitude. Just that will be a gift in itself. So, and that's that's my biggest takeaway: gratitude.
Yes.
That's why we do it. That's
For
what's
sure.
changed.
Rebecca and Ryan?
For both Ryan and I, since we both started doing our advocacy, our life has had a dramatic change in how we cope with FAP, just due to the positive self-talk that we constantly give out and we constantly see coming back. It has a significant impact on your mental health. Like, before I became a parent to a child with FAP, I was just living life, doing what I was doing, didn't really care too much. But as soon as it affected my child, I realized just the weight of that emotional and mental impact it can have, and that guilt that has been spoken about. It's huge as a parent. So when I started advocating, I saw the change in Ryan. I saw him blossom into the child that he's becoming and this little advocate that he's becoming. And I couldn't be more proud. And that wouldn't have been possible if I just kept my head stuck in the sand that I was. And now it's just a complete 180 change.
Mhm.
Um, the bad days, the hard days, they're easier now.
So glad. You're making me cry now, Rebecca. That's Ryan's job.
Like, even with Ryan and seeing just how much when he lights up now when he talks about it and his friends ask him questions about it.
Oh, I love that
That's
too.
He changes into another child emotionally and mentally and physically. He's happier since he started talking and opening up about it. And it's just amazing what advocacy can do.
It is. It's so true. I love that your friends ask you questions, Ryan. Like they're curious, and you are such a good educator
You hear that?
about
You are.
FAP.
You feeling tired? Do you need to go home? Ryan's just having a little bit of a hard time right now. So I actually am probably going to have to sign off. So
Okay.
I will
No
chat
worries.
with you guys later.
I'm okay.
Thank you guys, both of you, for
Thank
joining
you.
Rebecca and
Yes.
Ryan.
Thank you
Thank
for
you so
sharing.
much.
Oh, no, thank
And
you guys.
and for all that you're doing.
Thank you.
It's time to leave now.
Yeah.
Have a good day, you guys.
You
Yep,
too.
you
You
Thank
too.
you guys. Bye.
Bye.
kind of piggyback a little bit off of what Rebecca was saying and kind of everybody else. For advocacy for me, it's funny, like whenever I tell my story to people now, and if they get to know me a little bit before I'm able to tell them, they always say like that they're shocked. They're just like, you really went through all that, and you're happy, or blah blah blah. I would never guess that. And the truth was that only happened, because of going down the advocacy route. It transformed me into a different person. There was a time, and I even kind of wrote about this a bit, when pre-diagnosis, I wasn't really super happy or comfortable with myself. I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. I didn't really have confidence or self-esteem. And then I got diagnosed, and it kind of made that, infinitely worse. And then when I had a chance to tell my story, number one, it kind of got the skeletons out of the closet, so I didn't have to live with knowing that I'm hiding something. but it also, you know, like everybody else was saying, it kind of gave me positive feedback. You know, I was able to connect with other people. It kind of teaches you a lot about people in general, at least for me and my experience through advocacy. And just since, you know, I've opened up and wrote my book, obviously other people who don't have FAP have gotten something out of it too. It's not
Mhm.
just for FAP people, because I do document a lot of the mental things I was going through. And, you know, I've realized over the years that everybody goes through their bump in the road. You know, everybody has their own battles that they're dealing with, whether, you know, I have friends that have lost a brother already, or they've lost a sibling at a young age. And, you know, that's something I can't relate to because I've had health issues, but I still have my family, you know, thankfully intact. So I've never been able to experience a loss like that. Or if there's, you know, another more common one is I've had a lot of friends from high school who have been diagnosed with like ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease, you know, similar situations
Mhm.
where they've had to get colectomies and get a J pouch, you know, similar to me. And, you know, they've reached out to me for questions and whatnot. So in a way, it's kind of given me, I guess I wouldn't say an authority position because that sounds like a dictator. I don't know, but it's given me like a position to be proud of. You know,
Mhm.
something to inspire confidence in myself, and it's kind of helped transform me into who I am now. And when people, sometimes I'll get like pity from people where they feel bad for me, but the truth is, I'm very comfortable in my skin nowadays, which wasn't true when I was 18 pre-diagnosis, ironically.
Right.
And I've never been happier or more comfortable in my own skin today after diagnosis. And in a way, it kind of really, advocacy let me get to a point where I really understand myself, you know, a lot better.
Mhm.
And a lot of those emotional issues I went through when I was younger, I don't have those anymore. And I just feel like it's deepened my perspective on life, and it's given me a lot more meaning. And the meaning is
Yeah.
truly what drives me. Is because there was a period of my life where I lacked meaning for a long time, and just having that really does make a world of difference.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Mm.
Absolutely. And
Oh, advocacy. Yeah. I know I was such an angry person before I got into my advocacy. I mean, just angry. I mean, people were afraid to even say hi to me after my
Mhm.
diagnosis because they're like, is she going to bite our head off? And it was bad. I was just so angry. And then, like I said, when I saw Kevin's your webpage, I started saying, okay, maybe I'm not so alone in this battle. And
Mhm.
then your page led me to Kevin's, and that's when I started saying, does this have to be a death sentence?
Right.
And then one of the things, I've got people coming up to me now telling me, if you're going through this, why are you so chipper? Well, what am I supposed to do? Be angry all the time?
You've already done that. You don't wanna do it anymore.
Yeah, that's
Exactly.
what I told him. I'm past the anger phase,
Yeah.
and I said, and then it's like I tell people, I'm going to live to be 82. And they said, what'd you come up with 82? I don't know, but I'm going to live to be 82.
Well, it might really be more like 96 because I thought I was gonna die at 40, and that hasn't happened.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
Well, and see,
you'll
that's what's
probably be
funny
longer.
is my doctor asked me the last time I seen him last year, he goes, Ann, what is your future goals? He always tells me, set a goal
Uh-huh.
for this next year. And I said, well, my goal is going to be a long-term goal. I want to live to be 82. And he goes, let's make it happen.
Yeah.
And he goes, but I'd like to see that a lot longer than that. But he goes, our goal is, but he does. He makes me set a goal every year. And he
Love
actually
that.
messaged me and said, is there anything I can do to help you get out there and advocate?
Oh, I love it.
So
Ah,
I'm well
That's
known at
awesome.
Rochester. The doctors, he brings his other doctors. This is the lady I was telling you about.
You're that lady.
I
Just
am
that
that
lady.
lady. I'm known as the lady with the weird disease in Turtle Lake.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
Rochester this is the lady. And like I was telling him about what my niece went through. And he goes, but just think about it, Ann. If you hadn't been out there speaking up, your
Mhm.
niece would be dead.
Right. Right. You saved her life, and you're saving other people's too.
Yeah.
But if you ever doubted it,
Yeah.
with your niece.
Yes. And my
absolutely.
grandson right now is going through a lot of symptoms that I started going through when I was young.
Mm. Yeah.
And my son refuses to be tested, but I'm working on my grandson and getting him to understand. And he's like, well, Dad took me to a gastroenterologist. And I said, and if he's not a specialist in FAP and you didn't warn him about it existing in the family. So, it's just made me not afraid to even share with
Yeah.
I'm just open. I don't care. Yeah, I like talking about the uncomfortable subjects now
Yes. And I'm so glad you do.
because we got
And
to
Um,
get that
honestly,
stigmatism off.
for sure. And it's nice nowadays. I feel like, at least as I've gone, this is like something I've noticed between like 18 years old and I'm about to be 30 at the end of the year. When I was, 18 through like 21, 22, maybe even 23, I was like, kind of shy about what happened and like, the bathroom issues and blah, blah, blah. I would try to hide that a little bit from
Mhm.
friends as best as I could. And like, it was a little more taboo if I had to talk about it with friends at that age, because at that age, nobody's really going through that. It's very rare.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
now, as I'm almost 30, I mean, I've had a lot of friends over, it's not taboo at all. Like, I have friends who've been diagnosed with IBS and all these other things. And then they come to me because like they know that I've had similar experiences. Well, not
Good. You're
Yeah.
a
as
safe person.
yeah, and in a way,
Yeah.
what it's made me realize is like, I've had some friends who kids I graduated high school with, and their stories with ulcerative colitis are like, they make me reflect on my situation. I'm like, I'm lucky
Mhm.
in a way. Like, I just kind of
Yeah.
like, I still have some things I deal with, but I don't deal with flare ups like that. And
No.
like, at least my J pouch works. I mean, I know it doesn't work for everyone, and it's a very complicated surgery, and a lot depends on your surgeon and all that. But
Mhm.
like, there's a higher failure rate in people with UC and Crohn's. And I remember like just over the years, like connecting with those people, it really made you go like, you know,
Mm.
we're all dealing with something different. Everybody's
Mhm.
dealing with something, and it's something that nobody chooses. It doesn't make you
Yeah.
lesser of a person. It doesn't make your life any lesser. Because I remember I used to deal with those thoughts too. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, that's just a little thought.
Yeah. No, you're so right. Absolutely. It's I relate to all of you. Um, but there's a lot in Anne's story and Mike's story that I experienced a lot myself from both
Yeah.
of yours, and so I very much resonate with your guys's
Mhm.
mental health part of it.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, obviously, nobody wants anybody to go through any of these things mentally or physically, but it's like we said, been saying, sharing your
Yeah.
story helps other people not feel alone in theirs.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah, we all go through something.
that's right.
Well, there's so
And
much
and
stigmatism behind a lot of this stuff, and it just aggravates me because, like, people with chronic illnesses get depressed. But
Mhm.
when you tell people, "Oh, I'm depressed," "Oh, what's wrong?" "Oh, it's not contagious."
No.
Mhm.
It's just like I finally started telling people, "If you can't accept me how I am, you just need to turn around and walk away because I'm not gonna shut up. I'm not going to pretend I'm okay when I'm not."
Yeah. Yeah.
So they have to accept. I mean, and I do allow myself days. Once a year, I'm allowed to be as angry as I want for 1 hour, and that's the mornings I know I'm going in for my procedures. I get up, I'm just so angry. My husband won't even talk to me because he knows she's hangry because she's hungry, hasn't had food. She's got to go up there and have this done, and she's not happy, you know. But then by the time I get to Rochester, oh, I'm over it. Let's get it done.
Understandable.
Yes.
Yes. And this,
Yeah.
So,
And and there's a positive contagion, and
yeah,
you, and that's the I talk about this, so now I can somebody else can now talk about this
yeah,
because we've created this safe zone,
yeah,
mhm.
and I want everyone to catch that.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Hmm.
Well, Kevin, I'll answer the last two questions as you prompted. Um, so what led me into advocacy, into starting Life's a Polyp, is I had joined Facebook late to the game, as usual with any social media, and I found FAP community pages, and I commented on things, and the admin of that page asked, they made a post, and they said, "Will someone make a blog about FAP?" And I did read it. I ignored it, and and then they messaged me and they're like, "How about you? You comment a lot." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I started an anonymous blog because I didn't have, I had been building self esteem
yeah,
um, since high school with my reversal kind of around that time. And so by this time I was out of college. This was in 2012. So I started it anonymously because I didn't have the self-esteem or the self-confidence or the self-worth and all those selves um, to actually put my name out there. And then this lady and I always call her this lady. I don't know if she'd want her name shared or not, so I just say this lady. She was from Michael's Mission, and she did all this detective work, and she was like, I think you're the person behind this blog. And she encouraged me to unveil myself to the world and why that was important. And I took her advice, and I did. And I probably never would have if it hadn't been for her. But that's how it all started for me. And it's literally, I feel like it's saved my life. As I mentioned with my mental health, I've gone through periods through my life where I was deeply suicidal. I was deeply homicidal because of the mental health related to what I experienced with FAP surgeries. Didn't cope well with it, obviously. And my advocacy led me to finding people like all of you, and it led to finding community and knowing that I wasn't alone. And it makes me so emotional. It helped me build self-love. I'm still working on self-worth, but I can say I love myself now, and the advocacy that I've done, the community that we have, has been a huge, huge part in that. And so I always say that community and advocacy is life-saving and it's life-changing. And I know that it's not just for me. We've all been talking about it, but also, you hear about someone like, oh, you shared your story or you shared this information and I got labs. I was happy I couldn't get labs before, or I got a colonoscopy, or I got this or that. I made this headway in my own health journey, and that alone is life-changing and life-saving too. Um, and that, of course, brings joy, because how can it not?
Yeah.
How can that not bring you joy? Knowing that we're making a difference in the lives of other people.
It's just,
So.
it creates such a great opportunity for one huge hug.
Yeah.
It's the arms are just expanding and just bringing so many people into the circle with us. It's inviting others to have whatever you have, to have the, bumps in the road. And because there's no one alive who doesn't have something, that, I mean, and if it never gets shared, then they're not around long enough to be able to give that gift to others, to enable everyone the safety net to tell their story. If I'm making myself vulnerable, then there's a whole lot of people sitting on the sidelines who would have never said anything if I hadn't spoken up and offered and related to everyone who's ever had a rough time, by talking about my rough time. And so now they're free to come out of the shadows, to come out and to show the real joy and the real love that we are. And so I guess this is just kind of a way of sharing the light to bring others into that light, so they can share their light and bring even more into that circle of being okay. Or
Absolutely.
so much more than okay. We're not just okay. We are amazing.
Yes. And that's
Yeah.
I'm so appreciative for all of you for joining for this panel, and for Mike. This was Mike's idea to do for FAP Awareness Week. It was a wonderful idea.
Thank
It's
you.
okay. I give too much credit.
Oh, well, you helped make this happen because you put that out there, and it was a wonderful idea. So I am most
Thanks.
appreciative to you and for joining. And I hope that we can do more things like this.